परेको उम्मेदवार छान्ने हो।
सात ठाउँमा स्वस्तिक छाप हान्ने हो।
प्रमुख वा अध्यक्ष छान्ने पहिलो लहर हो।
उपप्रमुख वा उपाध्यक्ष दोस्रो लहरको।
तेस्रो लहर ओडा अध्यक्ष महिला सदस्य चौथो।
दलित महिला पाँचौँ लहर छैटौँ दुई सदस्यको।
पहिलोदेखि पाँचौँ लहर एक एक छाप हान्ने।
छैटौँ सातौँ लहरबाट दुई सदस्य छान्ने।
ओहो मन परेको उम्मेदवार छान्ने हो। सात ठाउँमा स्वस्तिक छाप हान्ने हो।
Namaskar and welcome. I'm sure you are here because you're preparing yourself for your exams. Yes, Institute for Excellence Center is education based and our target is students preparing for their Public Service Commission exams. And this is the segment where we tell you something about English. A bit of knowledge can always be useful. Of course, we know that you know a lot of things, but we need some reminders. So I'm here to remind you something about comprehension. So today's video is based on comprehension. So what is comprehension? Is the first question that I have for everyone, and my answer is it's the ability to understand something. It's an art of reading, understanding and remembering what we read in any given piece of writing. It's just not just reading, it's understanding and remembering. So if you have this art, I'm sure all of us can do very well. So there are different types of comprehensive passages. We're talking about passages today. They are narrative, descriptive, factual, expository, informative, argumentative, persuasive, analytical, abstract. We won't go for everything in detail. We'll do a few things today, but there'll be more videos on comprehension, don't worry. We'll be back with more of them. We don't want you to be with us for a very long period of time and get bored. We give short videos, useful videos, and we'll give another part also if it's necessary. So first of all, when we do comprehensive passages, the first thing we have to do is read. And how do we read? There are different ways of reading. Some of us just scan. We scan when we are trying to find some specific piece of information. In a given text, we want to find something, we scan. It usually occurs when we are trying to find an answer to a question. When we first look at the question and start trying to find answers, then we scan. The other one is skimming. It's also like scanning. It's a quick type of reading. Just skimming, going through, fast, finished. And the third and the most important is reading for detail. And I'm sure when we want to really do well, all of us will agree with me when I say we have to read for detail. So careful reading or reading for detail is the most commonly used reading strategy, and we should agree to that. I'm sure those watching these videos agree with me. So we read for detail and we really gain some knowledge. But before we read in detail, what are the things we are to do? How do we read in detail? How do we concentrate ourselves? First of all, let's relax. Take a deep breath. That really helps. Whenever I'm tired, that's a very personal experience for me. I do this and I really feel relaxed, and I can do a lot better than when I'm just going on tirelessly trying to prove I'm doing great. Relaxing is very necessary. So first of all, we have to relax. Whenever we are doing anything, we have to relax. So for reading also, let's do this. Go for this technique of relaxing. Take a deep breath and then prepare to read for details. Okay, now I'm going to read for details. I am going to do it for myself, not for anyone else. So it will be the thought there. Now you start reading. And when you read, don't make assumptions. Just read to observe. Try to find out what is written there. And don't just read the passage once. When you are reading for detail also, just reading once is not going to help you. So read it several times. And while reading, try to understand what is written between the lines. Sometimes some things are not written, and we have to understand what's written between the lines. As you go on reading, you'll find difficult words as well. So when you come to a difficult word, go through it very carefully and try to find the meaning in the context of what's being said. Try to understand what the passage is trying to imply. That really helps when we start writing. Now, when you write, first of all, look at the way the question is placed. After you have read twice or thrice in detail, go to the questions and then look at the way the question is placed. If you find that you don't have the correct answer, you haven't found the correct answer, try to read between the lines. You can try scanning or skimming. Find the facts. Now observe again. And then look at the tense. The other thing that is very, very important is looking at the tense. Tense, I say, is the best thing that we can learn in order to write good English or to speak good English. So tense is very necessary. So look at the tense of the question, and your answer should be according to the question, not according to the text or anything. Of course, it should be based on the text, but the tense should be as the question is. So after you have found your answers, after you have got everything ready, think about it on your head and then write with a clear hand and clear hand. Write in a neat handwriting. Don't write and think, but think and write. And the most important thing is you should never forget to number the answers properly. Your answers should have proper numbers, otherwise you might be misjudged and you might not get the marks that you're supposed to get. You really rightly deserve it just because you didn't number them properly. So that is answering questions. The second part we have is true or false. Of course, when we go through passages, you'll find out what is true and what is false if you have gone through the text in detail. Now, of course, there will be vocabulary. In the vocabulary, we'll have synonyms, antonyms, derivatives, homonyms or homophones. All these come in vocabulary. You have to understand each and everything there. But we will go for vocabulary in our next video. Today we are just going to answer some questions and look at the true and false side. And today I have got a very, very simple, very easy passage with me, which I'm going to say with you. I'll read it out first and then we'll do the answers. Let's try guessing. Okay, you can read with me. I'm sure that you are looking at the screen and you can read this. It was the first photograph that I had ever seen and it fascinated me. I can remember holding it at every angle in order to catch the flickering light from the oil lamp on the dresser. The man in the photograph was unsmiling, but his eyes were kind. I had never met him, but I felt that I knew him. One evening, when I was looking at the photograph, as I always did before I went to bed, I noticed a shadow across the man's thin face. I moved the photograph so that the shadow lay perfectly around his hollow cheeks. How different he looked. That night I could not sleep, thinking about the letter that I would write. First, I'd tell him that I was 11 years old and that if he had a little girl of my age, she could write to me instead of him. I knew that he was a very busy man. Then I would explain to him the real purpose of my letter. I would tell him how different and worried he looked with the shadow that I had seen across his photograph, and I would most carefully suggest he grow whiskers. 4 months later, when I met him at the train station near my home in Westfield, New York, he was wearing a full beard. He was so much taller than I had imagined from my tiny photograph. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, "I have no speech to make and no time to make it. I appear before you that I may see you and that you may see me." Then he picked me right up and kissed me on both cheeks. The whiskers crashed. "Do you think I look better, my little friend?" he asked me. My name is Rekha Dahal, and the man in the photograph was Abraham Lincoln. Now we have gone through this text. I'll be keeping quiet for some time while you go through the text once more. I read it for you, now you read it for yourselves. Okay, now we'll look at the questions here. We are just going to do question and answer and true and false here. We are not going to do the vocabulary part. So let's go for these simple questions. How did the man in the photograph look? The man in the photograph looked thin and unsmiling with kind eyes. You don't have to write down whatever is given in the passage as it is, but write it in your own words. How did the man look? The man looked. If the question had been, how does the man look? Your answer should have been, the man looks. So the second question is, why couldn't the writer sleep that night? Now we have read the passage, so why could she not sleep? There are very long sentences written there, but we will try to make it into a short and simple sentence. The writer could not sleep that night because she contemplated on writing a letter to the man in the photograph and wondered what she would write. She was wondering what she would write. So that's why she couldn't sleep. She was wondering what she would write. That's why she couldn't sleep. So what would she write in the letter? Now she couldn't sleep because she was wondering what she would write. Now what did she think she would write? She would suggest him tactfully to grow whiskers in the letter. Of course, the word tactfully is not used there, but she tells, I'll suggest him in a good way. In what way should I suggest him? She is in a dilemma. So we will write, she would tactfully suggest him to grow whiskers or a beard. And after that we have another question. What difference did she find in the man from his photograph? So what is the difference she found? In the photograph, she had seen a tiny man, a small photograph, and without any whiskers, and the difference she found was he was tall. She had imagined him to be shorter. So she found him to be taller and covered with a beard. That was the difference, right? So how will you write the answer? The man was taller than she had anticipated and had grown a beard. She had anticipated, she had thought that was the difference. See, I thought he was short, but she had thought he was short, but he was taller and didn't have a beard, but now he had grown a beard as well. So what did the man say in his speech? What did he say? He said that he had no speech to make and no time to make it, but he had come there to look at the people. What did he say in his speech? He said that he had come to that place without a speech and he didn't have the time also, but he had come to see the people there and for the people to see them. So that is what we'll write. The man said that he had no speech or time to make it, but had come to see the people and let them see him. That is what we will write. The sentences in the direct speech are changed to reported speeches so that it's easy for us to answer. Now we'll go for true or false. Of course, questions will be based for bigger people who have already passed the class 12, who have already done the masters, bachelors. So it will be a bit confusing. I have got this very simple because this is the start of a journey. So my question here is, the man in the photograph had a kind smile. Of course, there is kindness mentioned there, but there is the mention of an unsmiling face. It doesn't say that he was a smiling kind man. He was unsmiling but had a kind face is written there. So should it be true or false? It should be false. He did not have a smile on his face. He had kind eyes, but his face was unsmiling. Now the man in the photograph looked different when the shadows of the light fell on the eyes. Now you might have read in detail. When the shadow of the light fell on his cheeks looked hollower and he looked more worried, he looked different. That's why she wanted to write him a letter. She had been looking at the photograph for a very long time, but that particular night when she saw the shadows falling on his hollow cheeks, she felt that he looked very different, and that's what inspired her to write the letter, right? So yes, it is true. Looked when the shadows of the light fell on the cheeks. So that is true. The man was taller than the girl had imagined. Yeah, she had seen a photograph which was tiny, which was small, and she had anticipated that he must be quite short. She did not think he was as tall as the photograph, of course, but she might have thought he must be quite a short man. But when she saw him, he was a tall man. So he was taller than she had imagined. Now Abraham Lincoln and Grace Biddle were close friends. Were they? No. Of course, Abraham Lincoln addressed to her as a friend. They were not friends. This Grace Biddle was a small girl of 11 years and Abraham Lincoln was the President of America, and she had written a letter to suggest him to grow a beard. That was all. And Abraham Lincoln was a good man enough to understand why or what. He did not think, oh, I am the president, so I should not. So he had agreed to him, and he had called her friend. That's all. They were not close friends. Now Grace Biddle suggested Abraham Lincoln to grow whiskers. So what is it? I'm sure you know that. Yes, that's true. So that is how we write our answers for true and false. Now we'll go for synonyms, homonyms and homophones, derivatives, and we'll try to understand. We'll find out root words, and with the root words it will be easy for us to find the synonyms or antonyms.
स्मार्टफोन र स्मार्ट जमाना खल्ती हो पैसाको नयाँ ठेगाना डाइनिङमा बसेर आधा रात उठेर पार्टीमा रमेर शपिङ मल घुमेर टिभीको पेमेन्ट डन इन्टरनेट रिचार्ज डन प्लेनको टिकट डन फिल्मको टिकट डन पैसा नभए नि हातैमा खल्तीबाटै पेमेन्ट डन स्मार्टफोन र स्मार्ट जमाना खल्ती हो पैसाको नयाँ ठेगाना